forces the change of the status quo. Now, media has always been an enemy of black people because what media has done is media has always singled out people who had vanguard positions or vanguard attitudes and tried to make these people an enemy of the masses of people. In our case, like make individuals enemies of black people. Malcolm X would be a good example. More Negroes feared Malcolm X than white people because news media told black people that Malcolm was bad. Muhammad Ali, the reason that Muhammad Ali could be given the maximum sentence and the maximum fine and the black community did not revolt was because Muhammad Ali had been made an enemy of black people. Adam Clayton Powell could be legally lynched, politically lynched, and black people did not revolt was because the man had told black people that Adam Clayton Powell was an uppity nigger. He had legitimatized his own action through news media. So the news media is a tool of oppression.
What about your personal experience with the press? Do you feel that the press has given you a fair shake?
You see, in terms of myself as an individual, whether I get coverage or not, doesn't make any difference. But in terms of ideas, in terms of the flux of ideas, or the flow of ideas,
right,
I see that. Yeah, I see that the press has deliberately created a vacuum in terms of deliverance of attitudes or positions to the black community, which is to be expected. We cannot rely upon white news media to convey black revolutionary messages. So, like the press is doing their job. And to me, like what happened to me last year with the press is that was a boycott against me. ABC, NBC, and CBS. Anything that Rap Brown did, like you blacked out. Because, just like that, no question about it. And this was the whole attitude that has been assumed by news media. And black people do not control news media, so they cannot expect to turn on TV and find out what's going on in the black community. Just like, for example, in New York Times, one of the biggest pieces of white nationalism that exists in the country.
You have been quoted in the media, and you have been given some exposure. I think what you're saying is that the quality of that exposure leaves something to be desired.
Welcome to another episode of You Left Shit Out. I'm your host for today. I'm CJ or Compton J or J. And all of those names came because we have another James. So my government name is James, but we have another James as is one of the members. So in the beginning, we were just like, okay, we'll call you James. And I was anointed just my Twitter name, which was Compton J or J. So that's how we got here. So, but anyway, welcome. We have a lot of stories to get to today. I almost was going to call this a different podcast because I want to try to squeeze a bunch of stories in and then just chop them up later for everybody. So let's see how this goes. But you know how it goes. Sometimes we get into these discussions and we just let the discussion take us wherever we want to go, and we don't limit that. So I kind of have the same rule for today, but the goal is to get through some of these topics, and I'm going to hang on a second. I forgot to monetize this account or this feed. Let me do that. So yeah, I'll shout out the stories, and then we will go from that. So let's shout out the stories. Where's my notes here? So we're gonna cover, and there's more than this list. I added another one after this list. So Ben Dixon and Mondaire Jones calls out Cenk Uygur. So when it gets closer and closer to the midterm election, the actual election day, and this is going to happen again in the general election in 24, there's just a lot of back and forth going on, conversation, this and that, because the election, everybody's trying to present a particular push at the end, and that's what they're doing right now. What was I just about to put up here? This is what I was about to put up. So graphic there. So the overall topic is there's a seismic shift. There's a seismic shift in the broader sort of pseudo left/left. If you group all of them together, pseudo left would be anywhere from liberals to people who call themselves leftists, but we call them reformists. So all of those people to, people the left of RBN. So everything in between. There's a shift. And it's sort of illustrated in this first story that I'm talking about, which is Ben Dixon and Mondaire Jones calls out Cenk Uygur. Now, that might illustrate just Cenk going with his class, because he's not in the same class as Ben Dixon and Mondaire Jones. And I'm not saying they're poor, but a guy who just received over $20 million is not in the same class as Ben Dixon. So maybe he's stumping for his class because Rick Caruso is also a gajillionaire or whatever he is. Then also what illustrates this is Briahna Joy Gray calling out Bernie Sanders. And this happened yesterday, but somehow I didn't catch it to include it in the so those first two stories is the cover art. But these are illustrating a seismic shift in just who people are aligning with. Just think about 2016, 2018. I remember I used to retweet Ben Dixon. Shout I don't understand. And now to see where we are now, there's just a shifting that's happening. We've been talking about it mainly in the context of reformists and revolutionists, but I think even within the reformist camp, there's division that may necessarily split them. So that's the first two main topics. And then a story that we just pushing off. So I'm going to make sure I'm going to get that to today. And that's Stacey Abrams' corruption. I've been meaning to do a story on how Stacey Abrams has had a narrative out there that she's losing black male support. And it's smaller than the black female support. And it's smaller than it was, I believe, in the last time she ran. So there's been a push to say why, trying to blame this on black men as if she loses, it's on them. That's one narrative. And also that she doesn't have that support. Wow, Bernie Sanders is still uploading shit. I just got a notification. Still trying to get these people elected. So we'll cover Stacey Abrams story. Then I just happened to see a TYT. I clicked on the MTG. What's her name? Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I typically don't click on those, but today I clicked on it and watched one. It wasn't any of the big name people doing it, but still the message that was being delivered about Marjorie Taylor Greene, I thought it was interesting, and I want to show all of you and kind of talk about it for a few minutes. Also, David Pakman got some more footage content to go over with David Pakman about Dems are collapsing. And then I want to watch, I think we're going to start here. I want to watch some CNN coverage on the midterms, and it's going to touch upon some of the stories we've already talked about. We're going to be covering. But yeah, I want to talk about that first. Let me see if there's anything else I added here. I thought maybe. Well, it's not an ad, but I do want to show Ajamu Baraka. I want to show what he says about the progressives. And I guess I can show that at the same time when I'm showing what Claire Daly, the great, the fantastic Claire Daly, the one that's always calling out the empire. I think she's in Australia. So we'll just kind of cover a couple of those tweets. So, but first, I think we're gonna start with let's see. Oh, this is what I said. We're gonna start with John King and CNN. I've been trying to squeeze in corporate coverage along with some of the independent reformist coverage we covered. So I've been pushing that off. So I wanted to zero in on that today. So let's start with that today. The midterms are hot. Like I said, there is a seismic shift, and you're kind of seeing it in the polling and who's coming out and who's not coming out, who's showing up and who's not showing up for the Democratic Party. So that's sort of what we're going to be covering. So maybe this could be under Democrats collapsing, but and then we can kind of but I do want to get to the main story. So no, let's do this and then get to the main stories. So let's see who's here. Let's see what everybody's saying before we get started. Let's go. Purple philosophy. Headed to get my daughter from school, working class, doing this thing, daddy day. Or I don't know why I assumed that was a male. But parent day. Y'all need to check out Briahna Joy Gray's radar today. The Democratic Party is dead. We're going to add that now that you just told me, because it falls into Democrats collapsing. So we'll add Bree to the segment with David Pakman. So shout out to Rick. Thank you, Rick. I have a daughter home, wife is home today on Thursday. So we're the work from home so trying to do all of that, be with them and prepare for the show. Wasn't able to get to all the content I wanted to cover. So I don't know any updates of anything from like the majority report. So if you could tell me what's the latest on the majority report, what's the latest on the humanist report and Rational National, just what videos that they put out today. I'm curious the topics. And then maybe if it's included in this, we will add it in. Bree brought some anti-capitalist fire this morning. Absolutely great to hear that from Bree. The Progressive Caucus is a clown car on fire going over the cliff of insanity. That description, JP, is spot on. Starting time is on ever. Happy Thursday. Thursday is my favorite day of the week. Yes. Happy Thursday, CJ. Absolutely. Thank you. CBC voter. Hitting this button first before CJ asks. See, Bryce is a regular. He knows I'm going to be getting there in a few moments asking for that. So thank you, Bryce. Rodrigo, we want Nick and CJ. If Nick is around and you hear that, Nick, we do have a synergy. We do have a synergy, and we know that. And a lot of the content we do when we're together, that's the content that get the most views. So we do know that, Rodrigo. But just sometimes scheduling, I'm real consistent with this particular spot, and sometimes he has other things going on like real life. So the Turks are not jerks. Okay. We can do that. Let's not go there personal about the Turks, but if Jenks is another story. Me too, Bryce. We'll show CJ's who's boss. Thanks. Ashura. Let's go. What's up? How is Bernie Sanders in any different? I believe that D shouldn't be there. Any different from Madeleine Albright? That is a very interesting question there. Let's see if we got anybody else. the people need a vanguard of highly disciplined Marxists. Only way to safeguard against social democracy. Otherwise, liberals will just vote fascists right back in power. This is a great point. And it's something that Marxists understand. When we reach socialism, socialism has an ability to fall backwards if we aren't vigilant. So that is a great point. Let's get some new people. Some things never change. Still a blackout. I think we're starting to repeat a lot of people. So I believe I checked in with a lot of people. I'll be trying to make sure I get to some chats today, but let's start here. This is all under Democrats collapsing. I guess we can do that. Let's do that. I did want to start with the Cenk stuff, but there's no way to do it because this is Democrats collapsing. You just mentioned the BJG story. We can insert that. And then we have David Pakman. So maybe we should just put this all together and start there. Let's start with Dems collapsing. And this will start with corporate media's version or coverage of this fact. Where is it? Not there. One more to go to right here. All right, so let's start here. This is Inside Politics with John King.
We will try to get more information as it plays out. Appreciate the breaking news from Caitlin Collins. Caitlin, thank you. Come back when we do learn more. Now to the midterms and the shifting campaign debate, as we are now just 12 days away from your votes coloring in this map. President Biden stirring the conversation today. He's heading to New York to celebrate some new technology jobs. Watch, sources tell us, for the president to deliver a blunt warning that, in his view, giving Republicans control of Congress will endanger the economy. The president will make the case it will endanger your family's bottom line. That the president will be in New York, a blue state, is a reminder Democrats are on defense in this final stretch. Now, if there is one source of Democratic hope, it is the record-setting early voting numbers. Get this, 13.8 million votes so far across 44 states. But Republicans say things are trending their way, in most places anyway. Let's take a look and set the stakes 12 days out. We will fill this in again 12 days from today. Let's look at the current House just for perspective. Democrats have a narrow majority, 220 to 212. Republicans now increasingly confident they
Oops. Okay. I'm trying to get it to stay there. Let's pause here because I want to examine this number that you see there on the screen in the context of progressive power. So this is a mini segment within the segment. Progressive power. So we're going to do this, and we're going to post this on Twitter and tag everybody, all of them. So who do we have? Let's name all of the squad, everybody. So we have AOC, we have Ayanna, we have Ilhan, we have Rashida, we have Corey, we have Pramila, if you want to include her, I guess. We have Jamal. We have, was Mondaire including that, or he was not? Who is part of the Justice Democrats? Is that Mondaire? That's what I'm looking for. Justice Democrats, Mondaire. So we're talking progressive power, and we're talking the Justice Democrats. That's what we're going to also call this here. The Justice Democrats. Because that's 8. I'm pointing there. I should be pointing like that. But if you look at that screen there, 220 Dems, 212 red. The Crips and the Bloods, right? That's what they are. That's funny how it's the same color, but that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm at 8 right now. You hear me? I'm at 8. You could name a bunch of other people that are marginally, I guess you can call them Justice Democrats. I mean, Ro Khanna, I don't know how he's even a progressive, but they call him that, so let's put him there. Who's another person? Let me look at the chat. Who's another person? Who am I missing here? Who am I missing? Let me tell you who I have. I have AOC, Ayanna, Ilhan, Rashida, Corey, Pramila, Jamal, Mondaire, Ro Khanna. Who am I missing? I'm talking about, is this all of the House? Yeah, this is all in the House. Yeah, these are no senators here. So all in the House. Jayapal, Pramila. Yeah, I got Pramila. Let me see. Let me go through this list and see if I'm missing anybody. I got Bowman. Thank you. Got Bowman. Corey. Got Corey. I think we can go with this list. We've already hit the threshold. Mark Pocan, we can put him as a sometimes, right? So we'll go Pocan. Let's spell it out with phonics. All right, so let's take it there. Raul. Should we put him here? I didn't know of a Raul in part of a, but this is enough. Let's go with 10. There's 8. Why are we funding anything called NATO when they have total power to stop that? You tell me. What part of the Justice Democrats project was not stopping, single-handedly stopping the war machine? You hear me? You see that? They have 10 people: AOC, Ayanna, Ilhan, Rashida, Corey, Pramila, Jamal, Mondaire, Ro Khanna, Mark Pocan. That's 10 people. Why aren't they making a demand? What's happening here? It wasn't like it ended. So the point that I'm making now is that, we were saying about the speaker. Okay, they missed it there, but they literally could do it at every point. They literally could decide what exact legislation comes to that floor of the House. I'm sorry, not what comes to the floor, but what gets passed. Let's name them again. Let's say it together. Mark Pocan, Ro Khanna, Mondaire Jones, Jamal Bowman, Pramila Jayapal, Corey Bush, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Ayanna Presley, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. That's 10 people. There's an 8 number difference between the red and the blue team. So my question is, what is stopping them? Why isn't Nancy Pelosi the one kissing their feet? I mean, at no point are they doing it at all. So let's say they're picking and choosing, like Nina Turner. You ever heard of strategy? You know how when she makes that comment? Let's say they're picking and choosing. So 10 things. Name one of the 10 things that they exercise this. It wasn't on the 2 bills getting voted on together. The Senate parliamentarian, why didn't they come and say, we got some Senate parliamentarian. We sitting on our hands. What do we think would have happened if we would have had 10 Kashama Sawants? What would have happened? I'm asking, what is the difference in having corporate Democrats in these same slots? What's the difference? And the reason I'm like even kind of doing this little cutout of a segment within the segment is because just visually seeing the numbers together just brought it home to me, like, this is bullshit here. Are we talking about we have, and you might, is there an echo in here? Now you might be hearing people like Emma Vigeland and Sam Cedar are big on strategy and not doing these things because you're trying to do this and you're looking ahead because we're trying to get power. The power is here. The power is already here. So not one single Democrat needs to be elected in the House. Not one more single progressive Democrat. They have the power every single day until this election. Now they're about to lose it. Like, they're about to lose the power that they have. I just named 10 people. And they have more than that in the progressive congressional caucus. Supposedly they have more members than that. The Justice Democrat strategy is not a serious strategy. It's not a serious strategy at all. It's not a serious strategy, Nick. It's not, because the thing they said, oh, we're going to go in and gain power. You have it right now. There's no reason funding should be going to Ukraine without something coming from you. Y'all want to stay in bed with the Democratic Party and say, okay, you want to vote for funding. Okay, do that. Why aren't you getting anything? Literally, Nick, everybody, literally, at every avenue, there's a pressure point. Right now, the lame duck package that's coming up, right now, we should push for another force to vote. On this lame duck package. They're scared that the Republicans are going to take office and the Tucker Carlson wing of the Republican Party will not allow just a blank check to Ukraine. So they're going to pass a lame duck package, and it's supposed to be big. And what are these people going to do? This is terrible. So we should. There should. I mean, what could there be a force to vote on that I don't know what the topic could be, but there needs to be something. There needs to be something, because now they're going to go to the we don't have power thing. You see how they have that? They only have that for like another couple months. And nobody has been calling them out. Just as Democrats forced the nice. All right, so this was a mini segment. Let's get back to the story, but this is what we should be telling people. They didn't sat on their hands for 2 years, not demanding nothing, when they could have demanded something at every single point. Anything that's coming up that requires a vote, they should be demanding something. So why aren't they? What's going to be different if we elect 2 more? What's different? what's different if we had literally legislatively, honestly, I'm asking people in the chat, honestly, and Nick, if you're still here, if you have an answer for this, honestly speaking, what legislation that has been passed would be different? Or what legislation would we have? Either way, what legislation would we have that we don't have now? And what legislation would we not have that we have now? If you just replace all of these people with corporate Democrats, what would be different? Let's get back to that's the Justice Democrats, and they are collapsing too. Just right before our eyes. I feel like there's a acoustic echo. So yeah, let's continue with Dems collapsing segment and get back to, let's see how this is going to play, because I had it on pause for a while. All right, let's see if it takes time to catch up.
But they will not only take the House, but they will take it with decent numbers. One of the ways you see the Democrats are on defense is if you look at the 78 races that CNN and our partner Inside Elections define as competitive seats. Look at all the blue. 78 of them, you'll notice 53 and 22, that's 75. 3 of these competitive districts are new districts drawn up after redistricting. But Democrats on defense defending more than twice as many seats as Republicans. And if you look at these Democratic seats, look at the blue on this map. They're in New England, in Maine, in New Hampshire, in Rhode Island. There's a bunch of them in New York. You come down to Virginia, some out here in the Midwest, and even out on the West Coast. You have Democrats defending in blue states, 2 seats. In Oregon, Democrats are defending back on their heels. Look in California. It's the largest, most populous blue state. Of the 9 competitive districts out there, 8 of them held by Democrats there. So in the House race, Democrats back on their heels. Republicans thinking we might win not only the 5 we need, maybe 15, maybe 20. Some Republicans are talking 25 or more as we head into the final days. Then you come over to the Senate map, 35 contests at all, and some key shifts. We're waiting, of course, to see the fallout from the big debate in Pennsylvania the other night. Democrat John Fetterman against the Republican Mehmet Oz. That is a key contest. New developments today in Georgia. And among the new developments today, out here in Arizona, this a seat where the Democratic incumbent Mark Kelly running for re-election, the Republican candidate Blake Masters. Just today, the respected Cook Political Report moving this seat. Again, Democrats need to hold it to keep their Senate majority. Cook Political Report moving this from lean Democrat to toss-up. So another shift against the Democrats, pro-Republican in the campaign final days. Let's discuss.
Wow. So this was one they weren't counting on. Or this was one it was already in their bag. Fetterman and Herschel Walker. And how are you losing to Dr. Oz? How are you close with Dr. Oz and Herschel Walker? Lord, this is just terrible. These guys are terrible. So those are the ones that, we got the 2 competent clients, two competent candidates, we got the 2 better candidates, we're gonna win. This is what they're thinking last month. Weren't even thinking about Kelly. They just flipped that from lean Democrat to toss-up. Remember the numbers of early voting? They're saying that's one key factor for Democrats. What if those are red voters? Just saying. So let's continue with John King.
Discuss with me in studio to share their reporting and their insights. CNN's Dana Bash, Cleve Wootson of the Washington Post, and NPR's Asma Holland. And Dana, when you get to the shifts, I just showed the competitive House races, more of them, the Democrats on their heels. Now the Cook Political Report moving this race from lean toward Mark Kelly to true toss-up. In the final 12 days, Republicans are feeling more and more confident.
Yeah, and it's understandable given where we are right now with regard to the economy. Arizona, I was just there. Actually, I came back yesterday. Was there. I was in Nevada this week. And you can feel the anxiety on the ground talking to to voters. Rather, it's palpable. It's not to say that other issues are not driving voters to the polls. Still, the abortion issue was actually kind of surprising to me, given the state of the economy right now. How in Arizona, I was with a Republican candidate in one of those toss-up districts, and he was going up to voters just to say, please, vote for me, the way he should. And he unsolicited said, well, he solicited, what do you care about? And the answer from several of the women he talked to was abortion. And it's not to say that the economy is not driving, but it also was an indicator and a reminder to me that in these districts, you were saying the numbers, early voting numbers are high. Democrats are saying, okay, well, maybe that's a good sign. It might be a little bit of a saving grace.
Let's talk about this comment. Abortion is a non-issue. I would not say abortion is a non-issue, but I do have this to say about what Democrats are doing. There are issues that take precedent in everybody's individual's lives. We're not looking at issues as a movement. But in your own household, in my household, do you think defund the police comes before me putting food on the table? You get what I'm saying? Like, it's a reality that people who are on the left and liberals don't like to do this. Like, one issue, there are issues that are more important. That is simply a fact. Defund the police, abortion is not going to come before somebody who's able to put food on their table. That is a fact. We need to be able to intellectually speak about topics that are important and factually say that those topics aren't more important than the topics of sustaining life. You have to be able to eat in order before you can say defund the police. You get what I'm saying? Like, let's not live in a bubble of just this sense of everything has to be the same. It's just simply not. It's simply not. So I do think that right. It's very difficult to protest on an empty stomach. Like, you know what I mean? Like, let's stop acting like everything's the same. Your sustaining of life, meaning you as a human being, when, like, before all of this technology, back years, hundreds, thousands, whatever you were far back, I'm waking up and I need to feed my family to sustain life for the next day. That is the core. That's the core of our being. So now that we have all these technologies that sort of extend sort of these things, our core being, or this being our core being, you get what I'm saying? I just think that we need to take a dose of reality with these topics. Meeting material needs come first. And this is the exact reason why RBN feels like that's the first step in sort of building a movement, building these branches. Is first, let's go out to do community outreach. So it's the same sort of concept. I don't know why I had that particular thing up there. I did get a super chat. Thanks for the super sticker. I want to put it up there before I thank you, Peter. Don't see any other ones. So let's continue with this, and then we're gonna move to the Bree radar today that Rick told us about. Where is my control? There we go. Let's go back.
Because they had this abortion issue.
Right. And so that's why we would say 12 days out, be careful. Just be careful in the sense that early voting did help the Democrats in 2020. There's no doubt that it did. The question is, will it happen in 2022? If you look, though, at some of the fundamentals, the president's approval rating, normally the North Star in a midterm election, this is our CNN averaging, the poll of polls, approval 41, disapprove 56. That leaves Joe Biden about where Donald Trump was, about where Barack Obama was, a little below where Barack Obama was, and they both.
Sorry. Sorry. So all I said was this is CNN's poll, and I was trying to read when it was, and it's September to October. So they took this poll. So that's all you missed when I was on mute. But 41% approval. And you know how they get the it's lower than that, but there's tricks of the trade to get these numbers where they want to be at least presentable, and being in what they for is what they want. 4041, not 39, not 38, anything like that. So so that's his approval rating. Let's continue and see what they say about it.
Both lost the House in their first midterm. You make a key point when you show the Democrats, defending in all those House districts, defending in some of these Senate races. Now that forces the money to go to defensive races, not trying to get takeaways.
Yeah, I was just in North Carolina, for example, with Sherry Beasley, right? And Democrats there are begging, screaming, put more money in here. We can win this seat if we have more money for ads or whatever. But if you're defending in Arizona, which is now a toss-up, if you're in Pennsylvania or wherever else, that money's finite, and you don't have that money to go to other races. So defense has an effect, not just where that particular place is going on, but ripples all across the map.
And you have a number of interesting wrinkles. I'm going to share one with you right now. The Republican conservative Congresswoman Liz Cheney is going to Michigan next week to campaign for Democrat Alyssa Slotkin in one of those frontline vulnerable Democratic districts. Again, the fundamentals tell you it's trending toward Republicans, and then you get these little examples of things just outside the box.
Liz Cheney stumping for Democrats. Liz Cheney. Now, let's say she begins to be absorbed by the Democratic Party. Do you think her views change, or she just changes the nameplate to Democrat and keep her views? That's what I think happens. She just changes the nameplate. I'm a Democrat, and then she'll, changes her rhetoric, but the beliefs are the same. Same with Hillary Clinton, same with Elizabeth Warren, same with Cenk Uygur, who were all Republicans before. You think they just threw out those core beliefs that made them Republicans? Like, it's just not believable. It's just not believable. The Democratic Party has changed, Viking Dave says. I'm assuming that's sarcasm because it's in bold. Let's see here. Some jokes. Yes, Liz Cheney. All right, let's listen to more of this conversation. Now, understand what CNN is doing here. CNN has people who visually look like, oh, we're having diverse conversation, but they all have the same opinions.
That's true. I mean, and Slotkin's district to me is one of the most interesting in the entire country. I went out there months ago.
For example, this do they have her name up here? They show it at some point, so we'll say what her name is. What would be the point? Not what would be the point. But I want to use her as an example. If she's Muslim, how would it be diverse to have a Muslim person on as a part of your panel if that Muslim person supports the apartheid state or the genocidal state of Israel? What's the use in having that Muslim if that Muslim is against BDS? Like, what perspective are you getting if this Muslim is doesn't stand up for Palestinian rights. The point I'm saying is, what diversity is there? You just have a diversity of a shell. Like if everybody, if everybody is from Harvard, but it's an Asian American, it's a Hispanic American, it's a Latin American, it's a Black American, Hindu American, Indian American, but they're all from Harvard. What diversity do we have? It's just a shell. And that's what CNN is attempting to do here.
Go to look at how voters were feeling about inflation. And even back at that time, I would say Democrats on the ground there, wanted to hear more from the White House about the economy. I've been trying to track this inflation story for, I would say, the past year. And there was a sense initially that the White House was a bit slow to respond. I think they certainly have tried to be more aggressive on that front. We see that with the president today, trying to, portray this clear contrast on the economy. But the question is, for a lot of voters, they have sort of baked in sentiments about the economy. And, when you look at inflation, the numbers aren't great.
And to the point about the president, there's been a lot of pressure for him to focus more on the cost of living, the stresses on people's lives. Yes, to say we've done some things, but to not lead with that, to lead first with "I share your pain," essentially, to borrow a phrase. He's going to go today. He's going to talk about new technology jobs, but the White House, our Phil Mattingly and our White House team reporting, he's going to try to draw a sharper contrast, saying you might be mad at me, you might be frustrated with things, but if the Republicans run the House and the Senate, things will get worse.
Yeah, and it's one of the fascinating things is that GDP is up, so Biden's going to try to find a way to work that into his speech, or try to find a way to implement that Democrats give you a better future than Republicans do. But by and large, the voters that I've talked to have said they associate the negative, economic numbers with Biden over and over again. And when you have so many voters that have already cast, baked in their votes already, is there really any way for that argument to continue to make sense for Biden?
And another one of the races outside the box, because uncharted territory, is the Pennsylvania Senate race. Again, that's a Republican incumbent who's not running for re-election. So Democrats hope, can we pick that up? Because maybe we're going to lose Arizona. Maybe we're going to lose Nevada. If we want to keep the majority, we need to pick something up somewhere. John Fetterman had a difficult debate performance the other night. He is 5 months into a recovery from a stroke. Republicans see that as more evidence that race could trend their way. Fetterman trying to assure voters last night, okay, that was tough, but I'm with you.
Doing that debate wasn't exactly easy,
So I'm going to say this about John Fetterman and because up until this point, our comments about John Fetterman is on policy. So I happen to have experience with stroke victims. My oldest brother had a stroke a few years back, and he's now speech impaired. My father, who's already passed, but eventually brought him to the hospital, was a stroke. So I have experience, and for the health of the person who has had the stroke, I don't think that person should be on a campaign trail 5 months after a stroke. I don't. For that person's health, can my brother make the same decisions that he made before he had the stroke? Yeah. Yeah, you can do that. I'm talking about for the health of the person. No, I don't think John Fetterman should be out there doing that. And I think his unwillingness to share his medical records may indicate that something to that effect. I'll just put it there. So yeah, exactly. It's not about the stroke. So it's not about how he delivered. To me, for example, there's people who may not be able to speak. Does that mean they don't have a brain and they can't deliver? Just because they have to deliver their ideas in a different way, I don't see how that makes any difference. I'm saying for the health of the person, regardless of the business, I don't think you should be back 5 months campaigning after a stroke. I wouldn't recommend that. But our breakdown of him is how he's a Zionist. I mean, just many terrible things, and now he likes fracking. I love fracking. Like we broke it down. So check out our video yesterday if you want to see more on John Fetterman. So, but let's continue.
Oh. Knew it wasn't going to be easy after having a stroke after 5 months. I may not get every word the right way, but I will always do the right thing in Washington, D.C.
We won't know for some time, but it will be fascinating to see how the debate performance plays out in the sense that he's in a very competitive race. There's sort of tug of war in the suburbs where this will be decided. Abortion breaks for the Democrats, crime breaks for the Republicans, inflation breaks for the Republicans, Trump vote breaks for the Democrats. You have this tug of war. How does the debate performance factor in?
I think a lot of this comes down.
We're waiting for one more comment, and I believe she makes it before we end this clip and move on. So that's what we're waiting for. I believe it's her that makes one of the better comments. So let's listen. That's what we're waiting for. Let's listen and see if this is it.
Onto the candidate quality, right? And there are voters that you hear from in Pennsylvania who have serious questions about Mehmet Oz's record, the Republican who's running there for Senate. I saw this in Georgia, similarly in the Senate race there. As much as there are these nationalized issues, I kept hearing from split ticket voters, which I think, many of us thought were kind of unicorns, a bit of an extinct species, people who said they were voting for the Republican for governor, but were voting third party or Democrat for Senate because it came down to the specific qualities that they see in the candidate in front of them.
And that's a critical point in the sense, I just want to put up that these are just Senate races. The Georgia Senate race, just outside the margin of error, viewed as a toss-up race. The Pennsylvania Senate race is a statistical tie. The Nevada Senate race, we're going to talk about more later in the program, is a statistical tie. The Wisconsin race is a statistical tie. So you're in the final 12 days. I've been covering.
I think we're going to stop it there, but let's examine these numbers they have here on the screen. Can I make this go away? Yeah, there we go. So Raphael Warnock, Herschel Walker, I saw a poll that's closer to this. When we get to the David Pakman video, he has a poll that's closer, way closer than that. So I'm not sure. Of course, they're putting up the best polls to show up here. In Nevada, U.S. Senate seat, that's a 1 point difference. The red team is up by 1 point. In Wisconsin, the red team's up by 1 point. Mehmet Oz is down by 2 points. These are all Senate seats, and this is a. Why is it this close if the Democrats are clearly the better choice? This is the same question I was asking yesterday. But let's move on to I guess I can do it in here. Let's move on to the next part of Dem collapsing, which is Briahna Joy Gray's radar today. So let's now move to that one here. So what is it? The Hill Rising, yeah. So Rick is the one who suggested this one. So we're going to go ahead, and it's labeled something is dead. The Democratic Party is dead. Okay, here it goes. It's called The Democratic Party is Dead. And this is the video we're going to cover. So, but before we do that, let's go ahead and take a break here and get a couple of likes done. So let's like the video or like the stream. Let's get a few more people. We're sitting at 293 viewers, so hovering right around 300, and we have 183 likes can we push that to 250? That'll probably get another 25 people here to get in the chat and talk while we're gonna watch this live together, because I've never seen this. Rick suggested this, and I'm just inserting this into our Democrats collapsing segment. But like the stream, and we'll get some more people in here. Let's try to get to 250. And also join our Substack if you want to be notified of streams like this, like the one earlier that Nick did with Glenn Greenwald. That was unannounced. If you want to get notifications of those live streams about anywhere from 45 minutes to 2 hours, I think that was like 2 hours notification, join our Substack and you will get that. Now let's get back to the story. Dems collapsing. And this is BJG talking in her radar titled, "The Democratic Party is Dead."
Seems clear that the Democratic Party is over. I saw the writing on the wall and left after the Obama years. He was probably the best the party had to offer, and he revealed himself to be a truly disappointing character. You could drive a Bronco through the gap between his campaign promises and reality. And 14 years after he promised hope and change, we still have no campaign finance reform. Roe isn't codified. And instead of using his incredible political gifts to advance the interests of the communities he was supposed to represent, he's now angling to buy a basketball team. I guess it's easier to crush a future strike if you own a franchise. Now, that's not to say he did nothing. It's meaningful, truly, to not be denied health insurance because of a pre-existing condition. It matters that 35 million Americans got insurance in the first place through the ACA. But it wasn't enough. I was hopeful that an independent senator from Vermont might right the ship. Bernie stood up to Barack Obama when he threatened to cut Social Security. He truly was unbought by corporate money and was willing to call out the banks that destroyed American homeowners in 2008, even while Barack Obama was consulting with those banks to pick his cabinet. But even Bernie failed to take the type of stand that could have rescued poor and working class people from the corporate duopoly. Push come to shove, when he should have been fighting for our lives at the start of a pandemic, he told America that Biden would be a good president, that he wasn't corrupt, and he endorsed him within days of dropping out of the race, declining to even withhold his endorsement for anything at all. The populist left is such a non-entity that it couldn't go 24 hours without bending the knee to liberal know-nothings, withdrawing a letter, the most milquetoast critique of Biden's policy toward Russia-Ukraine. The letter didn't ask to withdraw aid at all. It merely asked, Oliver Twist style, please, may I have some peace? And progressives still couldn't stick the landing. But despite all of that, libs are gearing up to blame powerless progressives for what they anticipate will be a disastrous midterm result. Here's Chuck Todd this week on MSNBC.
If Democrats come up short in some of these places, I think there's going to be a lot of finger pointing. Progressives are going to take some heat for forcing some certain nominees in certain states that may have been less electable than other nominees could have been. The defund the police movement, all of this.
How is defund the police keep getting drawn into this when nobody is defunding the police? How is that? They keep drawing defund the police in, and when nobody's executing defund the police. Yeah, shout out Case Study QB. This is his video. And I was gonna cover this, or maybe I already covered it, but I do have reminiscent deja vu vibes with this video. But let's go back to the video. Let's listen some more to Bree.
This.
I'm sorry, which precarious Democratic candidate said they wanted to defund the police? Was it Fetterman, the guy who famously chased down a black man vigilante style at gunpoint because he thought he'd committed a crime? He hadn't committed a crime. Or Stacey Abrams, who after, flirting with actual progressivism for about half a second, has run hard on fund the police harder, even though.
So in the segment, when we get to the Stacey Abrams segment, this is why she's not getting the same amount of black men in Georgia as black women. Has nothing to do with sexism. She wants to fund the police, the very hunters that's hunting down black men. That's the reason. She have chosen the size of the slave catcher, Stacey Abrams. And wait till we get to her corruption story. The money that she's been taking in for her voter thing and where it went to go pay. Wait till we get to that story.
Even though it's probably costing her black male votes in Georgia, midterms haven't even happened yet. And the Democratic Party.
So I haven't watched this video. I didn't know she was going to say that. But that's the exact thing I just said.
Party gatekeepers whose purpose is to run cover for the complete and total political malfeasance of liberals are already in excuse-making mode. Their diagnosis of why Dems are flailing, same as always, somehow it's progressives' fault. The blame, however, lies squarely at Biden's feet. For one, he's done next to nothing about inflation, punting action to the Fed, which acts independently and whose only plan is to purposefully cause a recession by raising interest rates. In an article published yesterday in Vox, reporter Rachel Cohen asks, is the cure for inflation worse than the disease? The Federal Reserve's interest rate hikes mean 1.2 million people will become unemployed by the end of 2023. Others estimate that number could be as high as 3.2 million Americans out of a job. Quote, I wish there was a less painful way to do that, said Fed Reserve Chair Jay Powell. There isn't. Oh, well, I guess. Sucks to be you. The pain is the point, by the way. They are trying to slow down consumption by literally taking away your salary. The super consuming rich, though, no one's trying to curb their consumption. No, a wealth tax is firmly off the table, as are the types of interventions Europeans have fought for and secured, like a cap on energy prices. Biden's flacks say, don't blame him. He did the Inflation Reduction Act, but the Inflation Reduction Act was fact-checked by the Congressional Budget Office, and guess what? It basically does nothing to reduce inflation. And although the Democratic lawmakers introduced a bill in May that would seek to address one of the roots of the problem, banning price gouging, it hasn't passed the Senate and won't pass the Senate with the current congressional composition, a composition that, if polls are to be believed, is only going to get worse, redder, next year. It's no wonder then that Republicans are considered to be better than Democrats on inflation, even though their stated plan consists of cutting Social Security and Medicare. After all, how can it get any worse? We know the main driver of inflation is corporate greed. California populist Katie Porter made this case before Congress last week, and a fact check by the Economic Policy Institute and the Roosevelt Institute proved her right. Quote, a large portion of price increases are going to profits for larger corporations and services like groceries, furniture, and cars. Katie Porter's charts don't lie. But what are Dems going to do about it? Nothing. They will barely even talk about it. The price of a bag of Snickers has more than doubled, Bernie tweeted recently, but Republicans want to give the Mars family, who became 44% richer during the pandemic and are now worth $106 billion, a tax break of up to $42 billion by repeating.
I don't know if she's going to go down the same critique I have for this. But let's read what he's saying here. And let's examine what Bernie's saying here. While the price of a bag of sneakers has more than doubled, Republicans want to give the Mars family, who became 44% richer during the pandemic and are now worth $106 billion, a tax breaks of up to $42 billion by repealing the estate tax. Yes, trickle-down economics is very scary. So Bernie Sanders' idea is that keep us in office, the people who was in office as the sneaker bars more than doubled, without, you see how he just doesn't address the sneaker bars have been doubled? That's the Democrats are in office for that. Bag of sneakers has more than doubled. But what he is saying is that we, the people who are paying for the price of double the price for sneakers now, so we're already paying that because the Democrats, or while under Democrats watch, let's say it that way. He's saying we should keep those people in office because the red team is going to give the family that owns the business a tax break. How the fuck does that address our problem? That's how I say it, though. I say sneakers like that. I do. I've been told that before, but so don't think you're the first one. So my sneakers, like, did you put it? Because I don't like saying sneaker. It sounds funny to me. So I said I said the same, and I know it's snicker, but it sounds too close to nigger to me, so I don't say it that way. That's intentional. So yes, I'll keep it that way. But yeah, but that's the point from the best progressive Democrat. Our best hope is not to deliver a solution to why is the price of the candy bar has doubled, but to say let's not let the family that owns that company get a tax break. Yes. Yes, Snickers. But anyway, I played that joke too long. Let's continue with Bree, and I don't think we're going to cover, because I didn't realize it's 16 minutes. We're not going to do 16 minutes of this, but we'll listen to some more of Bree's breakdown, especially now that she's gotten to the part about the Democratic Party, specifically starting off with Bernie Sanders.
Repealing the estate tax. Nice tweet, but without the message discipline to make sure anyone not terminally online doesn't sees it, it doesn't exist in the Democratic Party. Good thing they've been spending so much energy messaging about saving democracy. This is a moment for real independent populist progressives to stand up to the plate, but they're nowhere to be found. This week, AOC ignored the progressive media that put her on the map, choosing once again to speak on a large liberal platform for people who like her, as far as she's a young, articulate Latina who doesn't criticize Biden too much. During her Pod Save America interview, she said a number of insightful things that were, in fact, an accurate diagnosis of what Democrats are doing wrong. And you should listen to that full interview. There's good stuff in there, but she also said this.
Special interests. Our entire political system is designed to be very, very acquiescent to money. And the difference is that Republicans, that is part of Republican ideology, is to support corporate America. I think the Democratic Party, we really struggle because we're supposed to be the party of the working class. But in reality, there's a...
Okay, so I guess I'm not going to cover this some more. So I already have a segment set up where I was going to go through the podcast Save America people. I think I cover them in a segment. And I was going to start covering these clowns with this interview, but it feels like it's starting to get out. This interview is getting out more and more that this is some bullshit. No, there aren't any progressives. I think I saw a question. All power to the people. CJ, are there any progressives? No, they're not. They're just liberals masquerading. But anyway, the point I was making is that I was going to cover this, but maybe it's not needed now that everybody kind of jumped on it and called out the bullshit, and she's doing it here. Back to GJG.
There's a lot in our big tent. It's highly segmented. And I think that there is a lot of objections from that within our party, which prevents us from being as forceful on these issues as we can be.
This is the problem with left elect.
So that was her adjusting what she's saying and how she's saying it for her audience. Like Bree said, this is a very liberal audience. The CNN, MSNBC watcher, that's who this audience is for Pod Save America. So she's saying our politics is bought off by corporations, and she's saying it in a nice way. Let's see if that's where BJG is going with this.
Electeds, they're often spot on and even more often are so close to saying something true, but then miss. Look, our politics are being killed by special interests, both Republicans and Democrats. But AOC weirdly pivots when she gets to the Democrats, saying that the real struggle, after saying that the Republicans have this problem with special interests, that the real struggle for Democrats is the party's diversity. The problem, she says, is that we're a big tent. I mean, give me a break. How can alienated voters, of which there are a huge and growing number, begin to understand that they should be following you? That left populism offers more than right populism. That you have real solutions if you refuse to call out your own party as bought and sold too. She used to call Dems out. It was why we loved her. But if this is the best the Democrats have to offer, I have to think that there's no hope.
Wow, I forgot. Briahna used to write for The Intercept. That's when I didn't read on her and follow her like that when she was on it. Not until she was already off. Then I went back and saw her articles, but yeah, so she used to write for The Intercept. And we speak about this too. How she was more adversarial in the beginning, and that's what gave people hope in this Justice Democrat strategy. Like, if people are going to be doing this, if we get a bunch of them in here, then this could work. But then she went soft. That's what she said. I can tell you.
Look, I'm not optimistic, but I hope to God that the Forward Party, the Green Party, or even Libertarians can get their act together and figure out how to mount a real challenge to the two-party duopoly, because things are looking bleak. We're in a world where the right offers up a fake social conservative who's been alleged to pay for multiple abortions while he's simultaneously playing the choir boy. And the liberals are offering up a fracking-loving vigilante who likes to citizens arrest black men in his spare time. And neither of them.
Yeah, I am loving what she's saying here. And I'm hoping, or I'm saying, or I believe that RBN has something to do with sort of the evolution of some people in the professional managerial class, like Briahna Joy Gray, like Catherine Liu, because I remember we were interviewing her, and I was like, we aggressively, vigorously object to supporting either party because of this. And she was like, you know what, Jay, I'm with you. Like, I'm to the point where, yeah, like, I'm with you, like, both parties now. Like, and she's like, I know people, because people at Jacobin would hear that and know that she's saying this. Like, I know people are not going to like this in some groups, but so I hope that the small footprint that RBN has, like, dropping something in a pond of water and the ripple effects, because how BJG is speaking here, and if you were to go back 2 years, to me, it's a big difference. Her coming to a conclusion like this and having these critiques, and I'm not saying she's as far as left as us. I'm just saying that she is as far left in their PMC class that they have. I don't know anybody else in the PMC class that is saying stuff like this. Let's take this super chat. Pathetic that Briahna is still on Rising. She should have taken a stand after what they did to Katie Halper and Kim Iverson. I don't agree with that at all, and I think I did a stream on that. But thank you for your super chat. I said the opposite. that you have, there's a platform of people that she can reach with what she's saying. For example, today, there's a audience of people that would never hear that unless she's there saying it. So I said the value in her staying is more valuable, and I still stand with that. But I take your point. That's not to say that you don't have a point. That's your opinion. But let's have let's have some I'm sorry, because I want to get to the next video. So let's see if she has any other points here, and then we'll get back on schedule to what I already had.
For very different reasons that engender very different levels of empathy, can really articulate their platform, much less inspire the kind of political revolution this country needs. We are on a precipice, and I, for one, am scared, and I'm tired. And I'm seeing protests getting more and more extreme on both sides of the aisle. And honestly, even though I disagree with some of the choices people are making, I get it. Riots, after all, are the language of the unheard, both on 1/6 and during the George Floyd protests. We have everything we need to truly make America great again. The people were never the problem. The problem has always been elite gatekeepers.
Mm-hmm.
Will anyone stand up and show the people how much power we really have? Or do I have to look forward to the Herschel versus Fetterman ticket or Herschel versus Fetterman in 2028?
Oh, I hope not.
I mean, I know that we talked about that debate a little bit yesterday. And, you know, some people seem to have come away with the impression that I thought that Fetterman did a good job. No, that's not the point. The point is that it doesn't matter if Fetterman does a good job or if Herschel Walker is a complete hypocrite. Nothing matters other than that people want control of the Senate. Republicans want their people in control. Democrats want their people in control. And there's good reasons for that on both sides for ideological reasons. And so increasingly, the quality of the candidate just doesn't matter. You've made your critiques of Republicans making bad candidate choices and not having these downstream effects and making this a closer race, a closer midterm battle than it needs to be. But the real people suffering here are the American people who increasingly have no one that's actually reflecting their interests in Congress.
Yeah, I wish it mattered more, as I actually do.
I'm not interested in Robbie's, but thank you, but no thanks, Robbie. And I also want to move to the next video here. But before we do that, let's bring in some of these things here, because it goes with the topic of Dems collapsing. There doesn't need to be so let me show you this Claire Daly tweet. This is Claire Daly, the one that always has the fire speeches on the floor of whatever, I think the house version in Australia. Is that on the screen? Can everybody see that? Yes. So everybody can see this here, but this is Claire calling out the progressives, like what they did. Like, this is why I said they're never going to recover from this. Like the CPC and possibly like the squad, but the CPC will never recover. I don't think they're going to ever recover, because when you're reaching across oceans where people are like writing about it, like the world socialist website, like they don't typically write on things like that. They wrote about it. So the CPC, the Congressional Progressive Caucus, will never recover from this. And this goes to part of why the Democrats are collapsing, because those left non-establishment people that were still willing to kind of vote for them, that's over. So let's read. So this news of terrible left has gotten over across seas to Australia. I believe that's where Claire is. I'm sorry, Ireland, not Australia. But disappointing from, this is the tweet, disappointing from U.S. progressives folded almost immediately, disowning a positive action, and worse, blaming staff. And for what? To make the jingles stop. Good luck. The international peace movement must stand its ground. Right is on our side. War is not the answer. And that's in response to their just terrible thing they put out. Just slimy, disgusting. I don't know all the adjectives I can give to this. Let's see what Garland Nixon said about it. Garland said the Progressive Caucus is now a warmonger nuclear war caucus. Yeah, so this is not going well for them. But let's go to another tweet since we're here. Let's bring up Ajamu's tweet. I think this is it. Or I think this is the link. I know this is it on the screen, but I think this is the link. Let's see what happens here. All right, so I can close this one. I have a lot of screens. Okay, I'm trying to get rid of. Okay, yeah. So let's see what he has to say. Now, this one is not on the letter and the Progressive Caucus. This one is just progressive. So I'm just going through the reaction and just the sort of the unmasking that's happening right before our very eyes of the progressive lane, of the progressive politics lane, with Bernie Sanders being called out by BJG, with Bernie Sanders saying this letter, they should have never sent this letter. And Ajamu, in response to the what happened to Elizabeth Warren, and we covered this yesterday. Elizabeth Warren and Ayanna Pressley had some nuclear war protests. But Ajamu, this is what he says: these progressive frauds need to be called out. This should happen at every gathering of these class collaborators and warmongers. And I second that. I hope to see this increase where people are interrupting them, where they literally can't do nothing. Everywhere they're going, so they're being interrupted by somebody, so they can wake and see we're not just sitting back anymore and you guys just keep telling us this nonsense, and we're not going to express to you that this is not going to continue in this way. All right, so let's see. Okay, I'm going to do a different segment for that one and that one. All right, so let's go to our next sort of video, which is the David Pakman part of this. Now, we're winding down this first segment of Dems collapsing with the David Pakman video. It is a shorter video. So let's go back to YouTube and bring it up. Now, if you want to finish and go back to finish watching the BJG clip, there's probably a good 7 minutes that we didn't watch, even after Radar, when she started to discuss it with Robbie, there was still like 7 minutes left. So don't think there's still a lot left there for you to go and check out. Let me see if I have it in my history here. The scandals there, I guess. Yeah, here it goes. Yes, Dems collapsing in red, Dems collapsing. He has. Okay, this is the one that has the words on it.
My audience knows if you've been following.
He's been making quite a few of these, watching analyzing the actual numbers, and he's going to bring up some numbers here, and that's the reason why I wanted to kind of play this, because he's going to go over some numbers. So let's watch David Pakman. The title of this is Dems Collapsing Quickly as Red Wave Rising. There was another one I wanted to cover. Was it this one? Was the first one? Oh, we can start here. It doesn't matter. Let's start here.
My audience knows, if you've been following the show for some time, that I avoid being overly optimistic or pessimistic about any particular election. And I always make clear that no matter what the polls tell us today, the only thing we can control is whether we vote, and we should always vote. In that context, in the last week, there are a bunch of races that are going very much the wrong direction. There is what I think can accurately be called a Democratic collapse happening in many races and a possible red wave rising. Now, at the start of the week, I told you, zooming out, the forecasts for the House and Senate have worsened for Democrats and they have improved for Republicans. But where can we see this at the individual race level? And I'm going to tell you up front, this is ugly. These are very ugly numbers that I'm about to show you here. Look at some of these races. Florida Senate, incumbent Marco Rubio is challenged by Val Demings. Demings is a great candidate who had one of the best debate performances of all the debates that we covered. What at one point was a Rubio lead in the region of 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 has now become a 7.5 point lead for Marco Rubio, very quickly getting out of reach for Val Demings. Moving on to DeSantis versus Charlie Crist, also in Florida. Charlie Crist mopping the floor with DeSantis, who visibly malfunctioned on Monday night. We played the clips. We showed you all of it. What at one point was a 5, 6, 7 point lead for DeSantis has now swelled to an 11 point average lead for DeSantis, with as much as a 14 point lead in some of these individual polls. This is quickly getting out of reach. Florida quickly looking like it will fall to the most extreme elements of the Republican Party, or stay in their hands, I think better said. In Georgia, again, talking about the best Democratic performances this cycle, Stacey Abrams was one of them, facing off against incumbent Republican Governor Brian Kemp. What had been, as you can see if we go back, actually, I do have the older data. What had been many polls in the Kemp +2, 4, 2, 5, 1 area has now become Kemp 6 +6.7, an almost 7 point lead for Brian Kemp. Not totally out of reach, but increasingly difficult for Democratic challenger Stacey Abrams. I don't tell you this to demoralize. There's this horrible thing that happens where no matter what I say about polling, someone's mad. If I say, look, the polls are looking terrible for Democrats, people say, oh, David, you're demoralizing Democrats so they won't go vote. And if I say, oh, look, the polls are looking good for Democrats, people write to me, they say, David, you're giving people false confidence. They're going to think they don't need to vote. Folks, I tell you what is going on. And I also tell you how I believe we should react. And no matter what the polls say, we should react by voting. But more of these races. Here is a race where the Democrat is still winning, but by a dramatically smaller margin than it was at one point. Dixon versus Whitmer. Gretchen Whitmer is the current Democratic governor of Michigan. Tudor Dixon is the Republican MAGA challenger. If you look, you see that even as late as August 24th, Whitmer was up by 16 points. By the middle of September, that was down.
So what David is doing here is illustrating that all the races are tightening. Like all the races are tightening or widening. Like tightening if Democrats had a lead, widening if Republicans had a lead. And he's just going race by race by race by race by race by race by race. So what does a United States government look like with GOP in power? So we have Biden in the executive branch, and then we have either the Republicans controlling the House or the Republicans controlling the House and the Senate. Now, if the Republicans control the House and the Senate, we're going to get some very conservative legislation like what happened when Bill Clinton was in office and we got the 1994 crime bill. We got the welfare reform bill. We got so many terrible things. We got the repeal of forget it, but the repeal of something is Glass-Steagall. The repeal of Glass-Steagall. We got Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So many different things. So that could be on the horizon because we all know Joe Biden is actually a Republican. So if he had those people, there's more things they had legislatively in common with those people if Republicans get in office than with the Democrats being in office. So now what if they kept the Senate, and which I don't think they're going to do, but they lost the House? What's different? What legislation is being produced that affects us now? Like, what's going to happen that's different that we're getting now? I'm not quite sure what exactly we're going to get. Now, if the Senate and the House is lost, and then in 24 Trump wins, then he'll have all three branches again for the first 2 years, just like last time. We'll see what happens. But when I get to the TYT segment, and I guess I can include that in this segment because it doesn't need to have a separate segment, but she's calling out how Republicans are preparing to do a bunch of investigations. And I'm like, isn't that what Democrats did? Didn't they start with impeachment? So let's listen to a little more of what David says before we move to the next video. Yeah.
Was down to an 8-point lead. The lead was halved. And now it is a 3-point lead for the Democrat Gretchen Whitmer. Michigan governorship is now in play for Republicans. It's sickening. If you look at Ohio, Vance versus Ryan, Tim Ryan, the Democratic the Democratic candidate, J.D. Vance, the Republican candidate. J.D. Vance, by sucking up ferociously to Donald Trump, he was able to secure an endorsement from Donald Trump. If you look at that race, what at one point was actually this one actually hasn't changed that much. It's a relevant one to include because it's important, but it actually has not changed that much. Vance is +2, and that's more or less where it has been. But it is potentially another seat that will fall to Republicans. Georgia Senate, Walker versus Warnock. Raphael Warnock's lead is now 0.5 point, and this one is really, really sickening. Herschel Walker can barely speak, and he can't explain his positions on any issue. He's completely incoherent.
He said this is sickening. Oh. It's funny because this is what we get out of the team sports, the red-blue game. This is what we get. People willing to vote for a guy who can't even speak, as David describes.
Warnock, not a great debate performance, but clearly the competent candidate. If you look back at the history here, Warnock was up 4 to 5 points in late July, still up 4 to 5 points in August, but that lead started to shrink to the point of a tie. Briefly, during the Walker scandal, Warnock opened up a 5-point lead. It's basically a tie. Herschel Walker, who cannot speak and cannot think, may replace Raphael Warnock as a senator from Georgia. And then Texas Governor Greg Abbott, the incumbent, versus Beto O'Rourke.
God.
This at one point was a sort of closer race. If you look at late June, it was Abbott +6. If you look at, there was a sort of brief point where the lead was smaller. I don't remember exactly where it was. Oh, it was actually last year. It was 5. This has now become a more than 8-point lead for the incumbent Greg Abbott, which in Texas will be quite difficult for a Democrat to overcome. Doesn't mean we stay home. What else do you have to do on that day? We should all vote and we should fight every race. But there is a serious concern right now that a red wave is coming, and it's a combination of a few things. Most importantly, this is the effect of Roe v. Wade being overturned, which helped Democrats, fading too soon, being supplanted by economic concerns, and despite essentially full employment and almost unanimously positive economic indicators, rhetoric on inflation reigning supreme in the minds of many voters. And it is shaping up to be potentially disastrous for Democrats. So what do? We vote. We vote, we vote, we vote.
We vote anyway, even though they're terrible. That is what David is saying. So I'm actually going to include I'm going to include, hang on a second here. 1 second here. I'm trying to make sure I'm doing these segments. Oh, I'm sorry. I was just about to play the wrong video. Okay, so I'm glad I looked at that. So I am now going to go to the Marjorie Taylor Greene video because it goes to the point of Democrats collapsing. And this is going to be the results of them collapsing is what's discussed in this video here, which is investigations. It's what's going to be coming.
Because we are.
Oh, did I click it one too many times? Sorry, I clicked it one too many times.
Because we are going to be.
So this video with Marjorie Taylor Greene, we're going to include into this segment here because it's part of this overarching Democrats are collapsing. Because listen to what TYT's complaining about in this video, and we're going to reflect on that after we play a couple of minutes. So let's go to the video, and it begins with Marjorie Taylor Greene speaking, and then it goes into it. So let's listen to this video.
Because we are going to be leading a revolution in Congress, and that is to put a referendum on the Democrat Party, a referendum through investigations and accountability. Joe Biden and his family will be a top target, and so will the CDC, the FBI, the Department of Justice, the Department of Education, Homeland Security, and many other federal government entities that have abused power and have done so much damage to our country. And it's time to starting in January of 2023.
So here's what happens if, and many people today would say when, the Republicans take over one of the branches of our government this November. Investigations. In other words, multiple, giant, expensive, time-consuming, pointless, regressive wastes of time and taxpayer money. The GOP plan after November is no secret. Matt Gaetz a few weeks ago and Marjorie Taylor Greene this week.
This is what they do. What was the difference in what they did, what Democrats did? Weren't they chomping at the bit for investigations when they took power? You can spend all this time investigating, or are you going to be helping? Neither one of them do it. So what is your point? And if you want to look up this video, it's titled MTG Threatens Democracy with Insane MAGA Plan. So let's listen. I'm going to rewind it more. I don't know if she said her name in the beginning, but let's listen more to this young lady.
Expensive, time-consuming, pointless, regressive wastes of time and taxpayer money. The GOP plan after November.
The impeachment trial was the same thing, same description. So let's continue.
November is no secret. Matt Gaetz a few weeks ago and Marjorie Taylor Greene this week are not mincing any words when they repeatedly keep saying that when they get into power in DC again, they aren't going to legislate or serve their constituents or ease any of the pains the working class is facing today, but they're going to engage in partisan squabbling for no other reason but to serve their own egos.
Republicans understand that their mandate in this election is not to go hold hands in the warm spring rain with the Democrats. It is to investigate them and to hold them accountable. And we can do that without the Senate. And
it's so frustrating that with inflation this high, gas prices through the roof, the GOP has the upper hand in messaging those exact things going into the midterms. And Democrats are certainly to blame for not focusing enough on those kitchen table issues that pretty much decide every election. But the GOP has no plan to ease any of those things. They've told us.
And the Democrats have no plan to ease any of these things. What's the Democrats' plan to ease inflation?
It's what they will do when they win. Grandstand in the halls of Congress so they can get a few sound bites for their Twitter accounts. This isn't a revolution, Marge. Disagreement with the other side is called politics. And guess what? You signed up for it. And if you're doing the job you swore to do, you're going to work through those disagreements to come out with laws and ideas to help your people. And if you thought the plan stopped at investigations and panels and testimonies, oh no, there's more.
This is the man that lost to the Taliban and armed them with 85 billion American taxpayer of military equipment and weapons. Joe Biden is the president of the United States that is currently losing a war to Russia and Ukraine, while they funnel nearly 100 billion American taxpayer dollars.
Impeaching Joe Biden for aiding Ukraine against Russia. And look, I'm no fan of the blind checks we are sending to Ukraine and think that we need a more robust.
This red-blue game is so frustrating because each of them have these clips and it's like, look, see, like they're pointing out the other side to be stupid or lame or whatever. And what does that do? What does that do? You pointed to a clip of her saying impeaching because of the war in Ukraine, and they have clips pointing to y'all impeaching Donald Trump when he had a few days in office. So it's preposterous and stupidness and ridiculousness on both sides. So it's just very hard to make your point. Very hard to make your point when the side that you refuse to critique is doing the same thing.
Anti-war campaign in this country to push back against the military-industrial complex. The answer is not an impeachment process. First off, you won't get the votes. You know that. It's crazy to think that the war in Ukraine is what she's using to justify an impeachment process. It's a conflict that largely has bipartisan support. And I'm not the biggest Joe Biden stan, but his milquetoast traditional Democratic politics couldn't be farther from radical or impeachable. I'll be honest, I'm really nervous for these midterms because
it could be far from radical or impeachable. Now you notice I didn't say anything against the impeachment part. Like, why could he should be impeached for starving Afghanistan kids? There's a lot of stuff that I would impeach him for. Going to war without a declaration. Like, so what is your point?
Because while the GOP is running.
But anyway, let's go to the next part of this. So we got what could happen because of the Democrats collapsing, or what's going to happen, and that is investigations are coming. Both sides do this. When the other party gets in power, you do investigations. Because you can't pander to your base and give them red meat about the other side and all the corruption, and then not get in power and not investigate the corrupt stuff you claim to have said was going on. So it's a way of them having to prove to all the people they've been yelling to, oh, look, we're investigating them. See? They do it all the time. No different this time. Let's go to the next part of this, which is 1, 2, 3. The Stacey Abrams part. Now, this ties to Dems collapsing. Like, so you thought, oh, Stacey Abrams is great. She built this, voter coalition. You think all these these are the things that are put on Stacey Abrams. So let's go to, I think this is another video from the Hill. And oh yeah, it is, because BJG had a reporter on, and I can't remember the name of the reporter.
Verified Action organization founded by Stacey Abrams spent $9.4 million between 2019 and 2020.
Okay, so let's let Bree set up the story. Then I'm going to fast forward it to where the reporter talks about what actually Stacey Abrams is doing. Stacey Abrams corruption. And this is we're still under the entire banner of the Democrats collapsing, but this particular part is Stacey Abrams corruption. Now let's talk about that. And let me see, where's the beginning of this video? Actually, let me see where we're at here. I gotta do make sure I'm off in time. Okay, so all right, so I do have a little time here. We are currently sitting at, let's see, 294 likes. So can we like the stream? Let's push to 325. We have 360 viewers. Let's push to 325. Get a few more people in here. I'll toss up your comments in just a second. Also, join our Substack so you get notifications of streams like the one today and also the one earlier with Glenn Greenwald. If you got a chance to watch that live, lucky you. Some of those people are watching it on, or some people are watching it on replay that wish they saw it on live. You can do that if you join our Substack and get on our mailing list. We send out notifications 45 minutes to 2 hours before the stream starts. And let's get back to Stacey Abrams corruption. Remember, we're pushing to 325 likes. And this is, let's listen to Bree describe it for like 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and then we're going to push forward to the reporter.
Verified Action, the voting rights organization founded by Stacey Abrams, spent $9.4 million between 2019 and 2020 on legal fees for a boutique law firm where Allegra Lawrence Hardy, Abrams' gubernatorial campaign chairwoman, is one of two named partners. That's according to new reporting by Politico's Brittany Gibson.
The federal tax filings for the organization are not available beyond 2020, and Lawrence Hardy declined to comment when asked how much money the firm had received in the past 2 years. But Verified Action maintains their funding for Lawrence's firm work to draw attention to voting rights. So joining us now to discuss is politics reporter at Politico, Brittany Gibson.
All right, so now Brittany Gibson is the reporter at Politico with this story. So let me fast forward to the pertinent part here because she gets into a lot of jargon. But then Bree says, "Hey, let's sum it up and let's nail it down to what's going on here." And that's where we get the understanding. Let's start here.
At the end of the day, the accusation is that she spent an outsized amount of money, not just as compared to what the defense spent, but also I saw in your article, other kind of public interest attorneys have pointed to the fact that they would expect a litigation of this sort to be much less expensive. The claims, in fact, were not meritorious in the court of law. So to the extent that they drew attention to these voting rights concerns, it's not clear at this point whether it's positive attention. And people are concerned doubly so because the money went to a small law firm that happens to employ someone who's been a longtime associate and friend of Stacey Abrams and who worked for her campaign or worked for one of her organizations.
Yes, it's both. She was the campaign chair in 2018 and is the campaign chair for this campaign, which is usually an unpaid position that does a lot to do with fundraising, not so much the day-to-day of campaign operations. Yes, and that's exactly right. So the NAACP's Legal Defense Fund did a study up through cases in 2021 that looks at the fees that plaintiffs as well as states in defending these cases.
So let me bring you up to speed here. So Stacey Abrams had a case going on, right? Where she's involved. And the law firm that she has hired that's handling that case, the law firm that's handling Stacey Abrams' case is a law firm that her campaign manager is the partner of, or attached to at least. I think she's a partner of, but if she's not, she's attached to. And the work they're doing for her, they did a study to find out what is the usual charge that other law firms charge for this same work. And there's around 8 or 9 million. They paid them 25 million out of the voter funds. That's Stacey Abrams. So let's listen a little more to her break this down.
Have paid in past cases similar to the one that Verified Action filed, and they found the most expensive case was $8.8 million in legal fees. That was a case down in Texas. And typically, they said it's a couple $100,000 over a couple of years. So this the $25 million for just half of this case already makes it the most expensive. And I should add, it's not just Lawrence and Bundy, the law firm of the campaign chair. They had, I believe it was 8 law firms involved in this case. But Lawrence and Bundy, they were the lead counsel.
Yeah, so the implication here then is that this is something maybe not as egregious, but along the lines of, right, the Black Lives Matter fundraising not being put to any good use and kind of just, being used for kickbacks or personal enrichment, and maybe, again, not on the level of buying properties, which is what happened with the Black Lives Matter organization. But this looks kind of fishy based on your reporting. It's hard to come away with another conclusion.
Yeah, I remain open-minded that there could be a perfectly logical or innocent explanation for why this case was so expensive, why they chose this attorney as opposed to, any other. I've asked, and maybe there will be a public answer. Maybe there will be some more explanation given on Fair Fight's side. I think what is important to think about here is what Kathleen Clark, she's a legal and ethics professor, said in the story. She said, there could be an explanation, but there's a fiduciary responsibility to make the best choices. Abrams was chair of this organization up until 2021 when she announced her second run for governor. And so in that role as chair of this nonprofit, chair of the board for this nonprofit, did she make the best decisions in spending the money that she raised? And Fair Fight Action during this time, this is just the 501c4, the nonprofit group, not even the Fair Fight Action PAC, which is called Fair Fight Inc. They raised $61 million, which is more than any other nationally known group in Georgia. And I found out through interviews with the now former organizing director at the group, she left earlier this year, that Fair Fight Action did not do any direct voter contact in the 2020 election cycle. They were, not alone in that during the pandemic. A lot of groups that normally do direct voter work didn't. I was able to verify that information talking to other voting groups in Georgia. So their main, the meat and potatoes of what this organization did, their main priority was this litigation. And that is where they spent, it looks like based on the 990 forms, the majority of their money.
Sounds like we should get Stacey Abrams on another magazine cover.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to ask you about this, Brittany. I don't want you to attest to this, but I have observed in interviews with on-the-ground grassroots organizers in Georgia, I detect a sliver of resentment, I got to say, when I hear them talking about how underpaid and undersupported on-the-ground staffers are, as we as a nation witness the enormous fundraising gains and attention that has been paid to Stacey Abrams in particular as a kind of hero of voting rights and electoral victory in the state, despite her own failures to win in any of her own races. And I appreciate you for bringing this story to us today, because we're definitely going to have to continue following this and see if this.
So just to add to the Democrats collapsing, she's losing her race. And you saw David Pakman illustrate how she's losing it by a lot. Not only that, how they're titling her to be this great voter outreach person. Turns out she's using those funds to pay off legal fees for herself, and it's an exorbitant amount that's not typical for cases like this. Also, which we never got to, the student loan thing that Biden tried to do to get people to come out and vote for him, courts blocked that. Appeals court blocks Biden's student loan relief. Now, this is a little bit of an old story because it came out a few days ago, but it goes with what's happening here. With the collapse of the Democratic Party, with the collapse of the progressives within the Democratic Party, with the collapse of Bernie Sanders in the Congressional Black Caucus, just, one thing sort of after another. So this was one of the things he tried to do in order to say, hey, I'm doing something, getting young people out here, and look what's happening to it. I don't see this as much covered on corporate news. Now, maybe they covered it, you know, for a split second. I'm sure they did, but this is a blow to what they're doing. Then you had OPEC, 2 million barrels per day less, adds to inflation. So they dip into the reserves. It's just one thing after another. So how are they in a position to now say, please come vote for me? Very, very, very strange. So I'll briefly read this just so you get the details here. I'm not going to read all of this, but last Friday, the 21st, so almost a week ago, a week from tomorrow, the U.S. 8th Circuit Court of Appeals blocked the Department of Education from beginning to discharge student loan debt of borrowers who qualify for partial debt relief under the program President Biden enacted by executive order in August. Biden, citing the impact of COVID pandemic, enacted the program by invoking a 2003 federal law that allows the educational secretary to modify financial assistance programs for students in connection with a war or other military operations or national emergency. End quote. Now, the problem with this, remember, Biden said the pandemic's over. And I think that's actually part of the lawsuit here. Is that he said that's part of the evidence or the exhibit. He said the it's over on camera. And then let me read this last paragraph. The program, which was officially launched in October, October 17th. So literally 10 days later, is already done. With the opening of a website for borrower supply, cancels $10,000 in for student debt that of earners less than $125,000 a year, or $250 for a household and $20,000 for those who receive Pell Grants for low-income families. If implemented in full, the plan would cancel an estimated $434 billion in debt, barely a quarter of the $1.7 trillion in student debt held by 43 million borrowers. The average amount of student loan debt is currently just under $29,000. Average monthly student loan payments are $234 for the undergrad degree and $570 per month for those with a master's degree. So that has been placed on hold. Maybe this is why we're seeing the numbers we're seeing with the Democratic Party. Maybe that's it. Now, let's get to two stories that are on the cover here of this, and on the cover of our, on the thumbnail of this stream. And we're going to start first with, let me bring this down actually. We're going to start first with, let me see which one here. This one here. We're going to start first with Cenk Uygur being called out by Ben and Mondaire Jones. So Mondaire and Ben versus Cenk. Let me charge these real quick before we get back to a video. Okay. So I think that's, yeah, Mondaire. I think I spelled it right. So we're going to read a couple of tweets here. Maybe I should start with the initial tweet. Maybe I should. Let's see if I have the initial tweet here. Then we'll get to the replies. Briahna, here's Cenk's tweet. Here's one of the tweets, actually. Now, so here's one of the tweets that kind of started what's happening with Cenk and what we're going to be talking about, what they're calling out from other reformists like Ben Dixon and Mondaire Jones. Mondaire Jones, who's also a Justice Democrat. Sorry, almost had a brain freeze there. Where is it? I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger. All right, so this is one of the tweets that kind of got people reacting a certain way. And let's read it. One second. LA is a mess. There's trash all over the roads. Cops don't respond to calls. It's close to anarchy here. Is Garcetti already in Mumbai? Is anyone running the city? Karen Bass seems to be saying she's going to maintain the status quo. She knows how to work the system. No thanks. Now, I'm not in the city of LA, so I'm not voting for the mayor of LA because I don't live in the city of LA. But I mean, I'm not here to even defend Karen Bass, but this is his critique because he's pushing Rick Caruso, and Rick Caruso is a Republican turned Democrat. Like, he recently became registered as a Democrat, but he used to be a Republican. Completely bought, billionaire, I believe a billionaire, at least very, very rich. So this is the tweet, and there's, as you can see, there's a lot of quote tweets. There's a lot of people who responded to this. And two of the people who responded was Mondaire Jones and Ben Dixon. Now, I guess I can go to Mondaire Jones, but I gotta go to the picture. Actually, where is it? Okay, sorry. So let's. Oh wow, Mondaire Jones. Let me just go to Mondaire Jones because it's 1,000. There's no way I can get through all of those. So let's go to Mondaire. Actually, I'll just go to the picture. Let's do that. So let's go to the picture. Let me. So you saw the original tweet, and there's another tweet too, but we're gonna see that in the picture I'm gonna show you. So we saw the first tweet where he's talking about LA being a garbage or whatever, however he described it. Where is it? Do I not have it up? My bad, everybody. Maybe this was it, and I just need to go back. Yeah, I think that's it. All right, so I need to go back one more. Go back. I guess not. Hang on a second, everybody. I have a bunch of windows open, and I need to get to the right window. Okay, now I see where it's at. All right, so this is one of the original tweets. My bad, everybody. I got too many windows open, and I thought I had closed it. But I found it. This one right. What am I tripping off of? Is it this one? Hang on a second here. It shows up a different way if it's a picture. My bad. I'm trying to see why I'm not seeing this. All right, so this one right here. Maybe not. I gotta close that one. How about? I wonder why it's not showing on the outside. Media, Cenk, LA mess. Oh, my bad. There it goes. All right, so it was the blank one. There was an option that didn't have anything. It was blank. It was this one. All right, so this is Mondaire. We'll come back to Ben Dixon, but this is Mondaire Jones' tweet. But let's read his initial tweet because I want to start out with the two Cenk tweets first. Right? So two Cenk tweets first. I can close this one. What other one I can close? I can close this one. Okay, that'll narrow it down for me making these mistakes here. Now there's another one. So I guess he had the backlash, and then he put out this one. So the first one I read about Cenk, that was the first one. Now he put out this. He says, "I hope Karen Bass proves me wrong, but I would be shocked if she changed the status quo even a tiny bit. What did she do in Congress? Approximately nothing. That's what establishment Dems always do. LA desperately needs change. If you think it doesn't need change, that's amazing." So Mondaire Jones says this in response. He says, This isn't fair. Congresswoman Bass fought tooth and nail to pass the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act, which we did in the House. No small feat given the anxiety of some moderates, but which stalled in the Senate because of GOP obstruction and Tim Scott's bad faith. So that's Mondaire Jones calling out Cenk, saying this is some bullshit. Now, again, I'm not here to defend Karen Bass, because Karen Bass versus Rick Caruso, really, what is the choice? But just as if you're saying I'm leaving the Democratic Party, but if you're leaving the Democratic Party and then going to the Republican Party, I'm going to ask, what the fuck is that? And that's essentially what Cenk is doing. You can call out Karen Bass, that's fine. But are you saying Rick Caruso? Are you saying Rick Caruso is the answer? Because he's going to do to the homeless population what you want to be done to the homeless population here, which is out of sight, out of mind, Cenk. Now let's go to Ben's tweet, which is here. Now, Ben has me blocked, has RBN blocked, so we have to go to a picture on this part. Let's see here. Yes, what is the choice? And that, like, what is the choice between Rick Caruso and Karen Bass? There is no choice, in my opinion. Yes, I do. Yeah, I know. We love you, CJ, but you such an old man when it. Yeah, I am. I need to. But we did have some people reply to the producer thing, so we have those emails, and we've just been waiting till after the summit to get back to them. So finally gonna reach out to them and see, maybe I'll get a producer for the segment that'll start to help me with some of these things. But I do know, I accept that is something that I'm not great at, and I could use help. But let's read this next tweet. This is from Ben Dixon. So this is the original tweet that Cenk sent. And Ben just says, the hell is going on over at TYT? Like, what the hell is going on over there? Now, tell me if you can find this tweet still, or if he deleted it. But let's take let's take a broader look at what's going on. So you have Mondaire Jones and Ben Dixon calling out Cenk Uygur. And it speaks to what I was saying to earlier. Like, we're seeing a seismic shift between revolutionaries and reformists not coming together. But even within the reformist camp. Now, this could be just Cenk selling out. Let's bring up the article. This could be just Cenk selling out to just, to his class. Because Ben, like I was saying earlier, Ben and Mondaire Jones is not in the same class as a guy who received $20 million. So he could just be stumping for this guy, Rick Caruso, on the right here. Another very rich person. So let's read the article, or I'm going to read a part of this article here. And this is from Vanity. So this is not a left-wing article that I'm reading, but it does speak to what's happening here. Karen Bass and Rick Caruso fight over how to fix the homelessness crisis in Hollywood's hometown. Now, remember, he said there's trash everywhere. He's referring to the homelessness problem without saying homelessness because he doesn't want you to get on him. That's Cenk, that is. Let's read. Oh, you can listen to this article. Well, let's try it. Let's see how it sounds.
Karen Bass and Rick Caruso fight over how to fix the homelessness crisis in Hollywood's hometown. By Cynthia Littleton.
Can you hear that? I think you can.
It's no exaggeration to say that parts of Los Angeles look like scenes from a disaster movie. The swelling ranks of people living in tents, vehicles, and makeshift shelters on the streets of Los Angeles have reached humanitarian crisis proportions. The dire need to address the upsurge of slum-like encampments dotting the city's streets, the San Fernando Valley's canyons, and the Hollywood Hills has dramatically raised the stakes of the mayoral election to succeed the outgoing Eric Garcetti. homelessness and the spike in violent crime are the overriding issues motivating voters in the charged race between veteran Democratic legislator Karen Bass and real estate developer Rick Caruso. The contest, which comes to a head on November 8th, has drawn more attention from entertainment industry politicos than usual because of the severity of the city's problems. Bass, an LA native who has represented the city in Congress for a decade, tells Variety that the debate over how to handle homelessness is what motivated her to leave Washington, D.C., for a run at Spring Street. Bass got her start as a community activist in South LA in the 1990s and says much of today's debate about homelessness reminded her of missteps that were made back then. It's the déjà vu that drove me to enter the race, Bass says. I think we made serious mistakes in the 90s, policy-wise, and it's absolutely, positively contributed to what we're going through now. Caruso and Bass have each called for declaring a state of emergency on the issue. Caruso, 63, tells Variety that he wants to hire 500 caseworkers and undertake a massive push to get the unhoused off the streets and into shelters. Based on what I've seen out there, it is absolutely solvable if somebody is willing to make very humane, tough, and smart decisions, he says. This city alone is spending $1 billion a year on homelessness.
What does he mean by tough and smart decisions? And do you understand shelters are temporary? Shelters are not long-term. So putting somebody in a shelter does what? I mean, long-term. To long-term fix the problem. It does something short-term, but what does it do long-term?
Issues, and the problem continues to get worse. The dysfunction in Hollywood's hometown is affecting business for the industry in large and small ways. And the fact that encampments are mushrooming even in ritzy West LA zip codes is driving up the alarm among some of LA's most privileged residents. Industry heavyweights, including investor Jeffrey Katzenberg, Netflix's Ted.
Did you just hear that? I did not plan that. I did not. I don't know if you heard what she just said in the article. Jeffrey Katzenberg. You know who donated the over $20 million to TYT? Guess who? Jeffrey Katzenberg. Wow. Maybe that's why Cenk is doing this. Maybe that's why Cenk is going outside of the bounds, because Karen Bass is supposed to be considered a progressive. Karen Bass, there's video of Cenk, I believe, saying good things about her. This is years ago, though. So I was like, why would he be all upset about Karen Bass and picking a former Republican? And it comes out. Let me go to the words here. Okay. It's right at this edge here. So it's talking about some of the business owners, and it lists them here. Where's Katzenberg though? Okay, here he goes. Wow. So Katzenberg is the same person who donated the money to TYT. Let me see. Jeff, TYT, Cenk, Katzenberg. I think that's it. That is it. So let's bring that up. So the same Jeffrey Katzenberg that live in these uppity cities that's demanding somebody come in here and do something like a Rick Caruso, isn't that something the ruling class would do? Hey, can we get somebody part of our class to run like Rick Caruso, get him in there, make him a Democrat because no Republican is going to get elected. Let's make him a Democrat so he can get elected so he can go in and do all these things under the Democratic banner. So let me quickly show you this other headline because it's part of the story. So this is the Jeffrey Katzenberg right here. Same outlet, Variety. Jeffrey Katzenberg invest in TYT network as part of a $20 million round. $20 million round. Let's listen. Oops, is it playing?
Jeffrey Katzenberg's WNDR Co. invests in TYT Network as part of $20 million round. By Todd Spangler. WNDR Co., Jeffrey Katzenberg's mobile entertainment holding company, has made one of its first investments. It's taken a stake in TYT Network, one of the top online video political news networks. TYT Network, whose flagship show is The Young Turks, closed $20 million in funding led by growth equity firm 3L Capital with participation from Graycroft, E. Ventures and WNDR Co.
We'll stop there. That's Cenk. The same Cenk who's out here saying this about Karen Bass. I wonder if there's a connection here. I wonder. Let's go back and finish up this segment. Let's go back and finish up this segment. Where is it? So close this one. Let's go back to the other Variety. Gotta finish up and get out of here. So again, this is also on Variety, but let's let them continue to read. But this is why what's going on is what's going on. You believe it? 10 more seconds. So I rewinded it a little bit so we can hear that part again.
Action in Hollywood's hometown is affecting business for the industry in large and small ways. And the fact that encampments are mushrooming even in ritzy West LA zip codes is driving up the alarm among some of LA's most privileged residents. Industry heavyweights, including investor Jeffrey Katzenberg, Netflix's Ted Sarandos, CAA's Brian Lord and UTA's Jay Shores have been active behind the scenes in the mayoral race. The homeless situation in LA is terrible, it's just terrible, says Shores, who has long been politically active as a fundraiser and is supporting Caruso. It's not fair or right for anyone, residents, homeowners, business owners, or the people sleeping on the streets in tents. It's a total failure. It's clear that the race is coming down to the question of who is better equipped to address the needs of LA's most vulnerable residents. Homelessness is perhaps the most conspicuous symptom of a thicket of social problems that range from the dearth of affordable housing to long-term economic dislocation and the harrowing rise in mental illness and substance abuse. Entertainment attorney Matt Johnson, a partner at Johnson.
We'll end there. I just wanted to give you background on the story, but that's something we just found out live together. Something we found out live together, that Jeffrey Katzenberg is one of the influential people who are in these cities who are financially, I'm sure, backing Rick Caruso. And now this guy, Cenk, who received $20 million from the same Jeffrey Katzenberg, is now saying Karen Bass, who typically is a progressive. Wonder why. Now let's go to the next part, the next segment. So we'll end this segment of Mondaire Jones and Ben Dixon calling out Cenk Uygur. And now we'll go to this last segment, and that is BJG calling out Bernie Sanders. I think I can just stop this. Finally shutting down some of these items. And here goes the tweet from Briahna Joy Gray. I can close these other ones now. Got so many, not so much anymore. All right, finally got these down to a manageable amount of windows here. But here is Briahna Joy Gray doing something that she rarely does, in my opinion. She did this with Vanguard, and I did a stream on it, like some of her harshest criticisms I've ever heard her do of Bernie Sanders. But here is another one. Now, Bernie Sanders cowardly responded to what the progressive caucus did, as saying, one, they should have never sent the letter asking for diplomacy in Ukraine. And two, he's happy they withdrawn it. So it's a moot point. And at the same time, he's out stomping for Democrats, telling people to vote for them. Like one of the few people who's literally doing all of this campaigning for the Democratic Party that really hates his guts. But this also goes back to what I said earlier in the stream. And that is, this is a seismic shift. It feels like, yes, there's a division between reformists and revolutionists, but it feels like there's a camp and a reform. There's within the reformist camp, there are people who are, I don't even know the word radical. There are people who are more left, or I guess you could say more radical compared to some of the other people in that same reformist camp. So if you can be radical as a reformist, it seems like there is a divide within the reformist camp along those lines. And here illustrates that, because she says Bernie Sanders joins House progressives in throwing the small left anti-war movement under the bus. And here's David Weger with that quote. I don't agree with that and don't agree with it. Apparently, so I'm sorry, let me say that again. I don't agree with that, and they don't agree with it. So he's talking about the letter, apparently. It was withdrawn today, so it becomes a non-issue. And that's what she quote tweeted to call out Bernie Sanders. Let's look and see what some of all of you have said, pointing out that David has you blocked. Here's a comment. Just sickening. Every Democratic congressional person has been cowed into sending unlimited weapons to escalate it towards a nuclear war between the U.S. And Russia and Ukraine without even politely suggesting that weapons should be paired with an attempt at peace negotiations. And then this person says, read about the 2004 coup of Viktor Yanukovych, the Minsk agreement in 2004, and the Minsk agreement 2 in 2015. You will see how well Nazis in Ukraine honor peace agreements. Here is a reply to Bree. Like a slap in the face. This is brilliant for legacy Dems. They were unpopular and people wanted change in Democratic leadership. They'll get their bright, shiny new face of Democratic Party, the progressives we've helped elect. Sounds like Bree needs to have another discussion about, is sending progressives inside the Democratic Party a good strategy? What is that now, like 1,000 discussions on this topic? Pretty funny. Let's see if we can get some. These are the same people. Let's see if we can get somebody different. Bernie hiring you was the worst mistake he ever made. And this person has a Ukraine flag in their bio. So that kind of tells you where they're coming from. Let's continue. I can close this window too. Oh, this person is back again to reply. Let's see what they say. Having a Ukraine flag that is the Ukraine flag of Nazis while claiming to support a Jew is somehow serious mental gymnastics. Ukraine police official requests list of Jews in Western City. That's the headline. To be pro-peace and diplomacy in America today invites social alienation and character assassination. Why, Bernie? Why the continual expansion of this dangerous, unwinnable, and expensive war when Americans are homeless, hungry, and without health care? Why? And I think I'll end it on that particular comment. And now let's put this back to the regular size here. And I don't see much else here. I don't think there's any stories that I'm missing. So I think I'm going to end it there. If you didn't take anything away from this stream, take away that it's 220 Dems, 212 Republicans. I counted out 10 progressives that could have been dictating every single piece of legislation that is brought to the floor, that is voted on this entire 2 years. With just 10 people could have done that. So let's, anyway, just infuriating just to keep thinking about that. But let's pick out our video that's going to be sending us out, and then also talk about some of the things closing. I'm going to be relaunching the fundraiser, the November fundraiser that we're raising. We're going to be raising, or we are raising money. Actually, let me just find the thing. We're raising money for the things around for around Thanksgiving. We want to go out and support the community, especially those on Skid Row and some of our housing project, Nickerson Garden projects. And if you were here for the summit, you saw we had the Watts Community Corps, which is a nonprofit 501c nonprofit that C3 nonprofit that has been doing the work in the community. We're going to be teaming up with, and they were here and showing all the work they do. Like, this is real work they're doing in the community. And then she was on the show, and coming to find out she's kind of radical like us. So that was great to find that out. But we'll be doing a fundraiser. What was I trying to share? Oh, the wrong thing. We'll be doing a fundraiser to raise funds to feed. I think we're going to try to get turkeys or something for some families, and then give some gift cards away to some families and maybe help pay bills, because always trying to help pay bills is always a good thing, especially with all of the inflation that's going on. But let me put up the. Do I have the fundraiser graphic? Or where is the fundraiser graphic here? I know it's right in front of my face and I'm missing it. Could be, or it could be not. Oh, yeah, it's down here. All right, so here is the fundraiser. I'll bring this down. Here is the fundraiser. I guess it's not a relaunch, but again, I guess I'm going to sort of like reassert it, reestablish it in the minds of everybody. But November outreach, we're trying to raise money for turkeys. We're trying to raise money for gift cards and food and clothing for those on Skid Row and Nickerson Gardens projects. So those are the two places that we're going to be attacking. But we need your help. You can send donations, anything from $1, $2, $3, $4, $10, $20. We also like the large ones, $100, $200. We did get a $1,000 donation the last time we had a fundraiser on the last day. So thank you for that. But here's the places, Venmo and Cash App. You can send donations. Again, we're raising money to help those that need help with meeting some of their material needs. And we're teaming up with Watts Community Corps. You can look them up. They have a Twitter, they have a Instagram, and they have a YouTube if you want to see some work. If you type them in, if you Google them, you can find where they've been featured on news. And I featured this in the summit, and I showed this news coverage of them being featured and some of the work they do, and how some celebrities were even helping them. Brad Pitt was one of them that was helping them flee from the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Was also, I think he's actually on the board now, because they've been helping this organization so much that they've been put on the board. So we're teaming up with that organization to bring some turkeys, to bring some food, and also some gift cards to the people in this community. So please, 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 if you're able to contribute, please contribute. Join our Substack if you want to get notifications of streams like this or streams like the one Nick had earlier with Glenn Greenwald. So make sure you join our Substack if you're interested in that. Like this stream on your way out. I'm trying to see what video I should go ahead and close. Oops. Where are we here? Oh, I thought I clicked this. This is what I should have clicked. So let's pick our closeout video. Oh, there goes that same fundraiser here. So send your, here is where, let me read all of it here, so you can read the rest of it. So LA RBN Community Outreach, it's time to start raising funds for our November community outreach campaign support areas. So we're going to be doing food, clothing, blankets, and bill paying assistance. This is a pilot program we're going to start. Bill paying assistance. And then also send donations, same graphic. So the pilot program we're going to be doing, seeing if we can assist with paying partial bills for some people. Not partial bill, paying some bills, smaller bills, I meant to say, not partial, but smaller bills for some people in need. And we're going to target those in some of the housing projects for that. So that is what we're raising money for. If you're able to contribute, please do. And like this video on your way out. We're going to end with Martin Luther King and speaking about capitalism and what is needed. I'll toss up your comments. Let me see how long the video is. It's 1 minute and 45 seconds. So I have 1 minute and 45 seconds to toss up your comments. Thank you for watching today. I am your host, CJ, and I'm on my way out. I got to go pick up the daughter. Here is Martin Luther King.
We read one day, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But if a man doesn't have a job or an income, he has neither life nor liberty and the possibility for the pursuit of happiness. He merely exists. Estimated that we spend $322,000 for each enemy we kill in Vietnam, while we spend in the so-called war on poverty in America only about $53 for each person classified as poor. The promises of the Great Society have been shot down on the battlefield of Vietnam, making the poor, white and Negro, bear the heaviest burdens both at the front and at home. The other thing I want you to understand is this, that it didn't cost the nation 1 penny to integrate lunch counters. It didn't cost the nation 1 penny to guarantee the right to vote. But now we are dealing with issues that cannot be solved without the nation spending billions of dollars and undergoing a radical redistribution of economic power. Yeah.